We commemorate the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. This moment of silence marked the moment a second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. Nearly 3,000 people were killed at the Twin Towers site, the Pentagon, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania on September 11, 2001, in the deadliest terror attack on U.S. soil. Today, Americans all over the country are gathering at memorials, firehouses, city halls, and elsewhere to remember those lives lost. And our senior investigative reporter, Aaron Katersky, joins me live now from the 9/11 Memorial in Manhattan, along with former NYPD detective, 9/11 World Trade Center first responder, Mark Claxton. Aaron, 22 years later, what's it like at the memorial right now?
At this point, 22 years ago, Diane, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center were on fire, and thick black smoke was rising like what Pete Hamill later called an evil genie that took hold over the skies of Manhattan, killing nearly 3,000 people and continuing to kill 22 years later. The ceremony is being attended by Vice President Kamala Harris, political candidates like Ron DeSantis, the mayor, the governor, and other dignitaries. But it is a day that is remarkably free of politics, and the kind of unity that took hold, fleeting though it may have been, does seem to prevail, at least for several hours, as the focus remains on the names of those who have died and the loved ones reading them and attending, coming to the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, clutching photographs and mementos, flowers, leaving them along the parapets, along the memorial pools. Many children of those who were killed here taking rubbings, because this is very much a complicated day. It is a day of death and memory and mourning and sorrow, and a day of anger for some. Many of the families who come here each year, some only come sporadically. Many have never come here at all because it's just too painful.
Now, Mark, you were there that day as a first responder. What goes through your head every year when we remember what happened on 9/11, and how does it feel to think that was 22 years ago?
Diane, you know, this is a national day of service and remembrance. It's called Patriots Day. But for many of us, first responders, those people who were actually on the ground at the different sites, it will always be a day of mourning. So it is a very solemn day, a very difficult and painful day for many of us. It really triggers for far too many of us the feeling of survivor's guilt.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, Mark? Because I actually hear that a lot when I talk to people who were there that day.
And matter of fact, the losses continue to this day. Just last week, I lost another friend, Kurt Jones from the NYPD, Manhattan North, and just from Midtown North, and this has been going on for 22 solid years. Painful, arduous, taxing losses. Every day, every week, every year, we lost another colleague, another friend, another person who responded or was impacted directly by the toxic ash and the environmental poisons.
And Aaron, that's a part of this that we often forget. The death toll from 9/11 isn't just what happened on that day. It keeps rising. Just last week, the FDNY added 43 new names to its World Trade Center memorial wall. And the department now says, in addition to the 343 people they lost on that day, on 9/11, nearly the same amount, another 331, have died since of 9/11 related illnesses. So what more do you know about those victims and that part of the story?
Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh put it this way this morning, Diane. She said that 9/11 for the FDNY is an ongoing emergency because so many of its members were not only killed that day, as you say, 343, but then another 331 in the last 22 years. For the NYPD, as Mark undoubtedly knows well, 23 members of the NYPD died on 9/11, 360 in the last 22 years. So 9/11 is still terrorizing New York and New Yorkers and the wider community, and it will keep killing for many years to come because of all of the illnesses, the cancers, the lung ailments that have been developed by people who worked tirelessly on what was known as the pile, that simmering mountain of ash and debris as they looked for people, for survivors, and then tried to recover bodies.
Mark, what do you think people need to know about the impact, and I don't just mean, again, what happened that day, but the extended impact of these attacks?
I think people need to realize that there is still among those who responded to these emergencies, and many of the people who were just in the area, not necessarily first responders, they're still dying. They're still suffering, and many of them from ailments and illnesses. And I think the numbers even that the fire department and the police department are able to give as far as numbers of deaths related directly to the event are really undercounting, because there are many illnesses that have yet to been directly attached to the toxic environment down in 9/11. So there are a lot of other people who've lost their lives for a whole host of weirdo cancers and respiratory illnesses, cardiovascular diseases that may very well be directly connected to 9/11 that have not been formally included for compensation. So the struggle continues. This will always be a day of mourning. This will always be, of course, a day of remembrance, but the death continues, and it will continue here on out. And many of us understand and recognize there's a particular vulnerability that we face. So many people, many years after service, after even retirement, have contracted or been diagnosed with one of these weirdo kind of illnesses that are directly related to the events, and pass away from it. So I remain vulnerable, as many of my other first responder colleagues remain.
All right, Aaron Katursky, Mark Claxton, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.